6 months after the Battle of Earth, Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Webb stood in the observation deck of the UES Apex Predator, humanity's new flagship constructed from salvaged alien technology. The ship had been named with deliberate irony. It was built from the wreckage of Grand Huntmaster Vex's former vessel, transformed by human engineering into something that exceeded its original capabilities. Through the transparent aluminum windows, Webb could see the sprawling orbital shipyards surrounding Earth. Hundreds of vessels were under construction, each one incorporating the hard-won lessons of the war against the galaxy's former apex predators. Humanity was no longer content to simply defend itself. They were preparing to take their place as the dominant species in known space. "Magnificent, isn't it?" came a familiar voice from behind him. Webb turned to see Admiral Chen approaching, her uniform now bearing the insignia of humanity's first interstellar fleet command. The woman who had once commanded a doomed agricultural colony now controlled the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "It's certainly impressive," Webb agreed, studying the massive construction projects. "Though I sometimes wonder if we're becoming the very thing we fought against." Chun joined him at the window, her expression thoughtful. "Perhaps, but with one crucial difference. We remember what it was like to be prey. That memory will keep us from making the same mistakes the hunters made." The transformation of human society following their victory had been rapid and profound. The species that had been forced to fight for survival had discovered they possessed an aptitude for warfare that exceeded even their enemies' expectations. Human military doctrine was now being studied throughout the galaxy as the new standard for tactical innovation and strategic thinking. "Sir," announced a communications officer from across the bridge, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council." Webb and Chen exchanged glances. The Galactic Council was a loose confederation of species that had emerged from the chaos following the Hunters' defeat. Many of the galaxy's former prey species had banded together for mutual protection, while others sought to ally themselves with humanity's rising power. "Put it through," Chen ordered. The holographic display activated to show Council Speaker Drex, a reptilian being whose species had nearly been driven to extinction by Vorthak hunting parties. His scales showed the nervous color changes typical of his kind when under stress. "Admiral Chun," Drex began, his voice carrying undertones of both fear and respect, "the Council has received disturbing reports from the Rigel sector. It appears that several human hunting parties have been operating in disputed territory." Chen's expression remained neutral, but Webb could see the slight tightening around her eyes that suggested she was already aware of the situation. "Please elaborate, Speaker Drex." "3 different species have reported encounters with human forces that match the tactics used during your war against the Hunters," Drex continued carefully. "Small teams using advanced weapons and stealth technology, eliminating targets with extreme precision before disappearing without trace." Webb understood the concern. Following humanity's victory, many human military specialists had found it difficult to return to civilian life. The war had produced a generation of highly skilled hunters who had spent months learning to stalk and eliminate alien predators. Some of them had apparently decided to continue practicing their skills. "The Council wishes to emphasize that these species pose no threat to humanity," Drex added quickly. "They are peaceful traders and explorers who have never participated in hunting activities against any sentient species." "Understood," Chen replied diplomatically. "We will investigate these reports and ensure that any unauthorized human activities are addressed appropriately." The communication ended, but Webb could see that Chun was troubled by the implications. Humanity's transformation from prey to predator had created unexpected challenges. The very skills that had saved their species were now becoming a potential source of instability throughout the galaxy. "We may need to establish a formal structure for those who can adapt to peacetime," Webb suggested. "Channel their skills toward legitimate purposes rather than letting them operate independently." Chen nodded slowly. "The Interstellar Patrol Service has been considering exactly that proposal. An elite force dedicated to protecting peaceful species from actual threats, with strict oversight and clear rules of engagement." The idea had merit, but it also raised uncomfortable questions about humanity's role in galactic affairs. Were they becoming protectors of the weak, or were they simply replacing the old hunters with a more benevolent but equally dominant system? Their discussion was interrupted by another communication alert. This time, the caller was Hunter Zethrak, one of the few surviving Vorthack commanders who had managed to escape the destruction of his hunting fleet. The reptilian warrior appeared on screen, his scales bearing fresh scars from recent battles. But his posture suggested respect rather than hostility, a dramatic change from their previous encounters. Admiral Chun, Colonel Webb, Zethrak began, using their proper titles with careful precision. I contact you on behalf of the reformed hunting guilds. This was a new development. Following the catastrophic defeat at Earth, many surviving hunters had formed a new organization that claimed to reject the old ways of indiscriminate predation. They now presented themselves as a legitimate mercenary force available for hire by peaceful species. The reformed guilds wished to formally acknowledge humanity's dominance in matters of warfare and hunting, Zethrak continued. We offer our services to the Terran Federation as auxiliary forces, should you have need of our capabilities. Webb found the situation deeply ironic. The galaxy's former apex predators were now seeking employment with the species they had once tried to exterminate. It was a complete reversal of the natural order that had governed galactic affairs for millennia. That's a generous offer, Chen replied diplomatically. What exactly would your guilds bring to such an arrangement? Knowledge of species and territories throughout the galaxy, Zethrak explained. Combat experience against threats that humanity has not yet encountered. And, most importantly, the perspective of those who once hunted your kind. We understand predatory behavior in ways that might prove valuable. It was a compelling argument, though Webb remained skeptical about trusting former enemies so completely. The war had taught humanity to be cautious about alien motivations, even when they appeared sincere. We'll consider your proposal, Chun said finally. In the meantime, we expect the reformed guilds to maintain strict neutrality in galactic affairs and refrain from any activities that might destabilize peaceful regions. After the communication ended, Webb and Chen returned to their discussion of humanity's evolving role in the galaxy. The transformation had been so rapid and complete that many humans were still struggling to understand their new position. The psychological assessments are concerning, Chen admitted, calling up reports on her personal display. Many of our veterans are having difficulty adjusting to the absence of existential threats. They become so focused on survival and combat that peacetime feels wrong. Webb understood the feeling. He had experienced it himself in the months following their victory. The constant vigilance and deadly precision required for hunting alien predators had become second nature. Returning to a world where such skills weren't needed felt like a betrayal of everything they had fought to protect. Perhaps that's why some are seeking new conflicts, he suggested. They need to feel useful, needed. The transition from defending humanity to protecting the galaxy might provide that purpose. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Sarah Kim, humanity's leading expert on xenopsychology. She had spent the past months studying captured alien technology and interrogating surviving hunters to understand their motivations and methods. Admiral, Colonel, she greeted them with obvious excitement. I believe I've made a breakthrough in understanding why the hunters targeted us specifically. Chen gestured for her to continue, and Kim activated a complex holographic display showing various species throughout the galaxy arranged in what appeared to be an evolutionary tree. The hunters weren't just randomly selecting prey species, Kim explained. They were specifically targeting species that showed potential to become apex predators themselves. Look at the pattern of their hunts over the past millennium. The display highlighted dozens of species that had been driven to extinction by hunting parties. As Webb studied the data, a disturbing pattern became clear. Each extinct species had demonstrated some combination of intelligence, adaptability, and aggressive behavior that might have eventually made them competitors for the hunter's dominance. They were eliminating potential rivals before they could develop into real threats, Kim continued. Humanity was targeted because our rapid technological development and aggressive expansion suggested we might eventually challenge their supremacy. This revelation cast the entire conflict in a new light. The hunters hadn't simply been predators seeking easy prey. They had been a galactic immune system, eliminating any species that might upset the established order. Their defeat meant that this system had collapsed, leaving a power vacuum that humanity was naturally filling. So we weren't victims, Webb realized. We were the next generation of apex predators, and they tried to stop our evolution. Exactly, Kim confirmed. And now that we've proven ourselves, other species are looking to us to maintain galactic stability. We've inherited the role, whether we wanted it or not. The implications were staggering. Humanity had won more than just their survival. They had claimed the position of the galaxy's dominant species by right of conquest. But unlike the previous rulers, they had the opportunity to build something better. The question, Chun said thoughtfully, is what kind of galactic order we want to create. Do we become benevolent protectors? Neutral arbitrators? Or do we risk becoming the very monsters we defeated? Webb considered the question while watching construction continue on the orbital shipyards. Somewhere among those vessels, human engineers were building ships that would carry their species to distant stars. The children of Earth were about to spread across the galaxy as its new apex predators. We become what we choose to become, he said finally. The hunters made their choice to dominate through fear and violence. We can make a different choice. Over the following months, humanity began implementing that different choice. The Interstellar Patrol Service was established with strict protocols for intervention in galactic conflicts. The reformed hunting guilds were integrated into a new peacekeeping force that combined human tactical innovation with alien knowledge and experience. Most importantly, humanity established the Predator Accords, a set of principles that would govern their behavior as the galaxy's new apex species. The Accords emphasized protection of the weak, prevention of genocide, and the promotion of peaceful coexistence between all sentient species. Marcus Webb was among the first to sign the Accords, formally accepting the responsibility that came with humanity's new power. As he put his name to the document, he reflected on how far they had come from the terrified prey animals the hunters had expected to find. The galaxy had scoffed at humanity until one species changed everything. Now, those same beings looked to humans for protection and guidance, secure in the knowledge that the new apex predators remembered what it was like to be prey. The transformation was complete, but the real test would come in the years ahead as humanity learned to wield their power wisely. The galaxy was watching, waiting to see whether Earth's children would prove worthy of the dominance they had claimed through blood and sacrifice. Standing on the bridge of humanity's flagship, surrounded by technology that represented the fusion of human ingenuity and alien science, Webb felt the weight of that responsibility. The sniper who had once hunted the galaxy's deadliest predators had become something greater, a guardian charged with protecting an entire galaxy from the darkness that had once threatened to consume his own species. The hunt was over. The age of human dominance had begun. Marcus Chun stepped out of his farmhouse as the first rays of Haven's Rest sun painted the sky in shades of amber and rose. The morning ritual was as familiar as breathing. Check the livestock, inspect the crops, begin the day's work that kept both him and his animals fed. He stretched, feeling the satisfying crack of joints that came from honest labor and restful sleep. The chickens were already awake, pecking at the ground in their enclosure with the single-minded determination that had made their ancestors successful survivors on Earth. His 3 cows, massive bovines genetically adapted for the slightly higher gravity of Haven's Rest, looked up from their grazing with placid expressions that suggested they approved of their simple existence. Marcus smiled as he scattered feed for the chickens. 18 months ago, when he'd first arrived on Haven's Rest, the idea of finding satisfaction in such routine tasks would have seemed impossible. Yet here he was, genuinely content to measure his days by the growth of crops and the health of his animals. He was filling the water troughs when the first shot missed his head by centimeters. The rail projectile shrieked through the space where his skull had been a fraction of a second earlier, traveling fast enough to leave a brief trail of ionized air before burying itself in the wooden fence behind him. The impact sent splinters flying in all directions, some sharp enough to draw blood from his exposed arms. Most beings would have frozen in shock, or screamed, or simply collapsed from the sudden spike of adrenaline that accompanied a near-death experience. Marcus Chun did none of these things. Instead, he dropped into a crouch that was so smooth and automatic it appeared choreographed, his body moving to positions that offered minimum profile while his eyes swept the surrounding terrain with professional efficiency. The second shot came from a different angle, confirming what he'd already suspected. Multiple attackers, coordinated assault, professional equipment. This wasn't a robbery or a random attack by desperate colonists. Someone had sent killers after him. Marcus rolled sideways just as the ground where he'd been crouching erupted in a shower of dirt and superheated rock. The plasma bolt that caused the destruction would have reduced him to constituent atoms if he'd remained stationary. His roll brought him up against the water trough, which provided temporary cover while he analyzed the tactical situation. 3 shooters. Iron Fong on the eastern ridge with what sounded like a military-grade particle cannon. Zexthor approaching from the west with twin rail pistols. And, based on the slight shimmer in the air near the southern fence line, someone with active camouflage or phasing technology. Marcus reached under the water trough and withdrew what appeared to be a simple tool for cleaning the container. To any casual observer, it looked like a standard agricultural implement. When Marcus pressed the conceal button, the device unfolded into something that definitely wasn't designed for farming. The weapon was compact, elegant, and utterly lethal. Military-grade pulse rifle, modified for rapid deployment and maximum stopping power. Marcus checked the charge indicator out of habit, even though he knew exactly how many shots remained and what each one was capable of doing to organic targets. Zexthor emerged from the tree line, his 4 arms allowing him to advance, while keeping multiple weapons trained on Marcus's position. The Vanguard assassin moved with fluid grace, each step calculated to maintain optimal firing angles while minimizing his exposure to return fire. Marcus Chun. Zexthor's voice carried across the morning air, translated by his communicator into accented but understandable standard. You are designated for termination. Surrender now, and your death will be swift. Marcus remained behind the water trough, his modified pulse rifle charged and ready. Can't say I'm surprised, he called back, his voice carrying a calmness that seemed inappropriate for someone under attack by Galactic assassins. Though I have to admit, I was hoping for more time before they found me. You know why we're here? Zexthor paused his advance, mandibles clicking with curiosity. Most targets beg for their lives or try to claim mistaken identity. This human seemed almost resigned to his fate. Let me guess, Marcus said, adjusting his grip on the pulse rifle. 50 million credits, no questions asked, complete elimination of target and witnesses. Sound about right. The accuracy of his guess caused Zexthor's 4 eyes to narrow. Targets weren't supposed to know the details of their own assassination contracts. You are well informed for a farmer. Marcus laughed, and the sound carried genuine amusement despite the circumstances. Farmer, right? I suppose that's what my records say. He paused, studying the positions of his attackers with professional interest. Before we dance, can I ask who's paying for the privilege? You know we can't reveal client information. Zexthor resumed his advance, twin rail pistols tracking Marcus's position behind the water trough. Worth a try. Marcus shifted position slightly, preparing for what he knew was about to become a very violent morning. Tell me, did your research include anything other than what's in the public records? Iron Fong's voice crackled through Zexthor's communicator, the transmission encrypted but audible at close range. Target is stalling. Recommend immediate elimination. Copy that. Zexthor raised his rail pistols, preparing for the killing shot that would end this unusually talkative target. Marcus moved. The water trough exploded outward as Marcus launched himself over it, his pulse rifle spitting energy bolts with surgical precision. The first shot took Zexthor in the shoulder, spinning the assassin around and causing his return fire to go wide. The second shot shattered a tree behind Venom Strike's position, forcing the Serpentine killer to abandon his approach route. Marcus hit the ground rolling, came up behind the chicken coop, and immediately had to dive aside as Iron Fong's particle cannon turned his former cover into a smoking crater. The chickens scattered in all directions, squawking their indignation at having their morning routine interrupted by alien weaponry. Interesting, Marcus muttered to himself as he sprinted toward the barn. Iron Fong's shot had been precisely aimed and devastatingly powerful, but it had come from exactly where Marcus expected it to. Either the Korthak warrior was predictable, or Marcus was getting better at reading tactical situations than he remembered. Venom Strike materialized through the barn wall just as Marcus reached the structure, his molecular knife already swinging toward the human's neck. The blade was sharp enough to cut through most known materials at the atomic level, and the Sci-Fi strike was perfectly aimed for a killing blow. Marcus wasn't there when the knife arrived. The human had dropped into a slide that carried him under the deadly swipe, his own momentum allowing him to sweep Venom Strike supports and send the serpentine assassin crashing into the barn support beam. Marcus continued his slide, rolled to his feet, and put 3 pulse rifle shots in the wall where Venom Strike had been a moment before. The shots passed harmlessly through empty air as the Scythek phased again, but they served Marcus's real purpose, forcing his attacker to use energy for defensive abilities rather than offensive ones. Every time Venom Strike phased, it drained power from his other systems. Eventually, those systems would need time to recharge. Zexthor appeared in the barn doorway, his shoulder wound leaking fluorescent green blood, but not significantly impacting his weapon handling. All 4 arms were now armed, creating a deadly crossfire that should have made Marcus's position untenable. "You move well for a farmer," the Vanguard assassin observed, his mandibles clicking with what might have been respect. Marcus positioned himself behind a piece of farm equipment that looked suspiciously well-armored for something designed to harvest grain. 23 years of practice teaches you a few things. 23 years of farming. 23 years of not being dead. Marcus triggered a control hidden on the harvester, and the agricultural machine suddenly sprouted weapon systems that definitely weren't standard equipment. Automated turrets emerged from concealed positions throughout the barn, their targeting systems immediately locking onto the 3 assassins. Defensive barriers rose from the floor, creating cover where none had existed moments before. Warning lights bathed everything in crimson as the barn's hidden security systems came online. "What the hell?" Iron Fang's voice came through the communicators as a cybernetic. I detected the massive energy signatures now surrounding the farmstead. Marcus smiled grimly as he took cover behind an armored section of wall. "Did you really think someone worth 50 million credits would live in a farmhouse without taking a few precautions?" The automated turrets opened fire with military precision, forcing all 3 assassins to seek immediate cover. The weapons were clearly designed to non-lethally disable rather than kill, but their rate of fire and accuracy made them impossible to ignore. Zexthor found himself pinned behind an overturned transport cart, all 4 of his weapons temporarily useless as energy bolts chewed up everything around him. This changes the tactical situation significantly. You think Venom Strike had phased through the floor to avoid the turret fire, but found himself trapped in the building's foundation with no clear escape route. Iron Fang's particle cannon could probably take out the automated defenses, but doing so would require him to expose himself to their return fire. His cybernetic calculations suggested a 67% probability of mission failure if he attempted a direct assault. Marcus used the respite to activate additional systems throughout his property. The farmhouse's windows darkened as blast shutters slammed into place. The livestock enclosures opened, releasing his animals into reinforced underground shelters. What had appeared to be decorative lights around his crops revealed themselves as perimeter sensors and defensive positions. "Impressive setup," Zexthor called out, trying to keep the conversation going while his tactical computer analyzed the new threat environment. "This level of preparation suggests you were expecting us." "Not you specifically," Marcus replied, checking his pulse rifle's charge level. "But someone like you. It was only a matter of time." "Time for what?" Marcus was quiet for several seconds, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a weight that hadn't been there before. "Time for my past to catch up with me. Time for the people I've killed to send friends. Time for old debts to come due." The automated turrets paused their firing pattern, apparently responding to some command only Marcus could give them. In a sudden silence, the 3 assassins could hear their target moving through the barn, his footsteps confident despite being outnumbered 3-1. "The question is," Marcus continued, his voice now coming from a different location entirely, "do you really want to know why someone is paying 50 million credits to have me killed? Because I guarantee you, once you know the answer, you're going to wish you'd chosen a different target." Zexthor's mandibles clicked nervously. The human's confidence was unsettling, especially given the tactical situation. Even with the automated defenses, Marcus Chun was still outnumbered by professional killers with superior firepower. Yet he seemed remarkably unconcerned about his chances of survival. Enlighten us. Iron Fang's voice crackled through the communication system. Marcus Chun, farmer, is exactly what his records say. He owns this farm, grows crops, raises animals, pays his taxes, and generally minds his own business. Marcus's voice seemed to be coming from the barn's rafters now, though none of the assassins could see any way for him to have reached that position. But before Marcus Chun was a farmer, the human continued. He was other things. Things that people with 50 million credits might want to forget about. Venom Strike tried to phase through the Foundation again, seeking an angle of attack that would bypass the defensive systems. Instead, he found himself confronting what appeared to be an underground bunker complex that extended far beyond what should have been possible for a simple farmstead. Military engineer, for example, specialized in defensive installations and automated systems. Funny how those skills transfer to agriculture. Marcus's tone suggested he was enjoying himself despite the mortal danger. Before that, military intelligence, pattern recognition, threat assessment, counter-assassination protocols. Amazing how paranoid you can get when you know exactly how people like you operate. Zexthor was beginning to understand why this contract had seemed unusual. And before military intelligence, special operations, deep reconnaissance, asset elimination, target acquisition, and neutralization. Each phrase was delivered with the casual precision of someone reciting a grocery list. I was very good at my job, good enough that some people are still nervous about what I might remember. The barn fell silent except for the hum of defensive systems and the distant sound of Iron Fang recalibrating his targeting equipment. The three assassins were beginning to realize that they might have made a tactical error in accepting this particular contract. The really funny thing, Marcus added, his voice now seeming to come from multiple directions at once, is that I was trying to retire. 18 months of peaceful farming, no violence, no killing, no reminders of what I used to be. I was actually starting to enjoy it. A new sound entered the barn's acoustic environment, the distinctive whine of charging energy weapons. But these weren't the automated turrets, which were still maintaining their defensive positions. These were personal weapons being brought online by someone who knew exactly how to use them. Now you've gone and reminded me of all the reasons I was good at staying alive in the first place. Marcus Chun stepped out of a section of wall that hadn't been there moments before, his simple farmer's clothing replaced by military-grade combat armor that emerged from hidden storage compartments throughout the barn. His modified pulse rifle had been joined by additional weapons that definitely weren't designed for agricultural use. The three assassins stared at their target and realized they might have made a very expensive mistake. The combat armor that emerged from Marcus's hidden storage systems wasn't the bulky, obvious protection favored by most military forces. Instead, it was sleek, form-fitting, and covered in adaptive camouflage patterns that shifted to match the surrounding environment. Each piece locked into place with mechanical precision, transforming the simple farmer into something that looked far more dangerous. Zexthor's 4 eyes tracked the transformation with growing alarm. The armor alone represented technology that shouldn't have been available to a colonial farmer. Military-grade personal protection systems were restricted items in most sectors of the galaxy, and the particular design Marcus was wearing suggested origins from some of the more secretive branches of human military development. That's not standard colonial defense equipment. Iron Fang observed through the communication system, his cybernetic eye analyzing the armor specifications. The readings he was getting suggested power levels and defensive capabilities that rivaled his own cybernetic enhancements. Marcus checked his weapons with the fluid motions of someone who had performed the same actions thousands of times. Primary pulse rifle, charged and locked. Secondary pistols, loaded with armor-piercing rounds. Micro missiles, armed and ready for target acquisition. Close combat blades, sharpened to molecular edges. Everything was exactly where it should be, exactly as he had maintained it during 18 months of hoping he would never need any of it again. Standard equipment. No, Marcus agreed. His voice now filtered through the armor's communication system with a slight electronic distortion that made him sound more machine than human. But then, I was never a standard soldier. The automated turrets that had forced the three assassins into cover suddenly shifted their targeting parameters. Instead of simply providing suppressive fire, they began coordinating their attacks with surgical precision, forcing each attacker to move in specific directions that gradually hurted them into predetermined positions. Venom Strike realized the tactical shift first. His phasing abilities were being countered by energy fields that appeared exactly where he tried to materialize, forcing him to remain in phase longer than his power systems could sustain. Each time he attempted to solidify, the defensive systems predicted his emergence point and made it untenable. He's not just defending, the Scythek hissed through the communication link. He's maneuvering us. Zexthor was beginning to reach the same conclusion. His position behind the overturned transport was becoming increasingly precarious as the turret fire shifted to eliminate his cover, while leaving him clear escape routes that led only toward positions that offered Marcus better shooting angles. Iron Fong found himself facing a different problem entirely. His particle cannon was powerful enough to destroy the barn's defensive systems, but every time he tried to acquire a target lock, new threats appeared that demanded immediate attention. Micro-drones had emerged from hidden positions throughout the farmstead, each one armed with weapons designed to exploit the gaps in his cybernetic armor. "This is not a standard elimination mission," Iron Fong announced, stating what had become painfully obvious to all three assassins. Marcus emerged from behind a piece of farm equipment that had transformed into a mobile defensive platform, his armor's camouflage systems making him difficult to track visually. "No, it's not. But then, you're not dealing with a standard target." His pulse rifle spoke 3 times in rapid succession, each shot precisely aimed to force his attackers into movement rather than to kill. The first bolt passed close enough to Zexthor's head to singe his mandibles, driving the vanguard assassin toward a position near the barn's eastern wall. The second shot forced Venom Strike to phase through the floor again, draining more of his already depleted power reserves. The third bolt punched through Iron Fong's cover, missing the Korthak warrior by centimeters while destroying the communication relay he'd been using to coordinate with his partners. "You're hurting us," Zexthor realized, his tactical analysis finally catching up with the reality of their situation. "Of course I am," Marcus replied, moving to a new position with practiced efficiency. "Did you think 23 years of staying alive was just luck? Every defensive position has offensive applications. Every piece of equipment serves multiple purposes. Every tactical decision creates opportunities for the next engagement." The barn's layout was becoming increasingly complex as hidden systems continued to deploy. What had appeared to be a simple agricultural structure was revealing itself as a sophisticated military installation disguised as a farm building. Defensive barriers rose and fell according to some predetermined pattern, creating temporary cover that guided movement while denying static positions. Venom Strike attempted another phasing maneuver, trying to approach Marcus from an unexpected angle through the barn's foundation. Instead, he found himself trapped in what appeared to be a kill box specifically designed to counter his abilities. Energy fields prevented solidification in any direction except upward, forcing him to emerge in exactly the spot where Marcus was already waiting. The molecular knife that had nearly taken Marcus's head earlier now seemed pitifully inadequate against military-grade combat armor. Venom Strike, perfectly executed and delivered with lethal precision, skittered harmlessly across adaptive plate armor that redistributed the impact force across its entire surface. Marcus's return strike was not harmless. The combat blade that emerged from his armor's forearm mount was designed for close-quarters combat against armored opponents. It vibrated at frequencies that disrupted molecular bonds, allowing it to cut through most known materials with minimal resistance. Venom Strike's natural armor, evolved over millions of years to resist the weapons of his homeworld's predators, proved inadequate against human military engineering. The Scythek warrior collapsed, fluorescent green blood pooling beneath his coils as Marcus stepped back to avoid the dying assassin's reflexive strike. The molecular knife clattered across the barn floor, its edge now chipped and useless against the kind of protection Marcus wore. One down, Marcus observed his armor sensors already tracking the movements of his remaining opponents. Zexthor's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of stress among his species that roughly translated to swearing in several different languages. The loss of Venom Strike eliminated their ability to bypass physical barriers and significantly reduced their tactical flexibility. Worse, it demonstrated that their target was not only well-equipped but entirely willing to kill professional assassins who threatened him. "Iron Fong, we need to reassess this situation," Zexthor transmitted through his personal communicator, abandoning the compromised barn communication system. Agreed. Target has military-grade equipment and training. Recommend immediate extraction and mission abort. Marcus heard both transmissions clearly, his armor's electronic warfare suite having cracked their encryption within seconds of the first exchange. Leaving so soon? But we were just getting acquainted. The micro-drones that had been harassing Iron Fong suddenly coordinated their attacks, forcing the Korthak warrior to expose himself to return fire. His particle cannon took out 3 of the small machines with a single blast, but the explosion's energy signature revealed his position to Marcus's targeting systems. The pulse rifle shot that followed was aimed not to kill, but to disable. The energy bolt struck Iron Fong's particle cannon just as it was cycling for another shot, causing a feedback loop that overloaded the weapon's power systems. The resulting explosion wasn't large enough to kill the heavily augmented warrior, but it was sufficient to damage several of his cybernetic systems and leave him temporarily stunned. Marcus moved through the barn with the fluid confidence of someone operating in familiar territory. Every step was calculated, every position chosen to maximize his advantages while minimizing exposure to return fire. His armor sensor systems painted a 3-dimensional tactical display that showed him exactly where his opponents were and what they were likely to do next. The thing about being a target for assassination, Marcus said as he advanced on Zexthor's position, is that it gives you a very personal interest in understanding how assassins operate. Zexthor found himself backed against the barn's eastern wall, his 4 weapons trained on the approaching human. The vanguard assassin was skilled enough to make any direct assault costly, but he was beginning to understand that cost might not matter to his target. I've studied your species, Zexthor. Vanguard physiology, combat patterns, weapon preferences, tactical doctrines. I know exactly how fast you can draw, how accurately you can shoot, and what it takes to put you down permanently. Marcus stopped just outside the Vanguard's optimal firing range, close enough to talk, but far enough to react to any sudden movements. You know my name? I know a lot more than your name. Zexthor of the Third Spiral, apprentice to Bladewind the Silent, graduate of the Obsidian Academy, 47 confirmed kills across 12 sectors. Marcus's recitation was delivered with the casual precision of someone reading from a personnel file. The accuracy of the information caused Zexthor's mandibles to click nervously. That level of detailed intelligence wasn't available through normal channels, which meant Marcus had access to sources that most humans shouldn't possess. I also know, Marcus continued, that you've never failed to complete a contract once accepted. Perfect record, until today. Today is not over yet. Marcus smiled, the expression visible through his armor's transparent faceplate. No, it's not. But it's about to be. The attack came from an unexpected direction. Instead of engaging Zexthor directly, Marcus triggered a system that caused the barn's floor to tilt at a 45-degree angle, dumping everything not secured to fixed positions toward the eastern wall. The Vanguard assassin found himself sliding helplessly across the tilted surface, his 4 arms flailing as he tried to find purchase on the smooth metal floor. Marcus, anchored to the barn structure by magnetic systems in his armor's boots, remained stable as gravity, and momentum carried his opponent exactly where he wanted them. The trap was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of trying to outfight a professional killer in direct combat, he had used the environment itself as a weapon. Zexthor slammed into the eastern wall with enough force to crack the reinforced polymer construction. The impact stunned him momentarily, providing Marcus with the opening he needed to close the distance. The combat blade that had killed Venom Strike emerged from Marcus's armor again, this time aimed at the neural cluster located behind the Vanguard's primary sensory organs. Wait, Zexthor gasped, still struggling to regain his orientation after the impact. We can negotiate. The contract can be canceled. The client will pay more for information than execution. Marcus paused, his blade stopping just short of delivering a killing strike. Information about what? About who you really are. About why they want you dead. About what they're afraid you might remember. The barn's floor returned to its normal position as Marcus considered the assassin's words. Iron Fong was still alive, but temporarily disabled by the feedback explosion. Venom Strike was dead, his blood slowly congealing in the cool morning air. Zexthor was captured and apparently willing to provide intelligence in exchange for his life. Tell me about the client, Marcus said, keeping his weapon ready while his armor's sensors monitored the area for additional threats. We never met directly. Contract was arranged through intermediaries, payment transferred through untraceable accounts. Professional standard for sensitive eliminations. Zexthor's mandibles clicked nervously as he spoke, his body language suggesting he was telling the truth. But you have suspicions. The payment amount, 50 million credits for a single human, suggests either extreme wealth or extreme fear. The requirement for close-range confirmation suggests someone who wanted to be absolutely certain of your death. The timeline pressure indicates urgency. Marcus nodded slowly, processing the information. What else? The contract included a secondary clause. If we discovered any information about your background beyond what was in the public records, we were to report it immediately. They were paying extra for intelligence. They wanted to know what I remember. That would be my assessment. Marcus stepped back, lowering his weapon slightly, while keeping Zexthor covered. The assassin's information confirmed what he had already suspected. Someone from his past was trying to eliminate loose ends, and Marcus Chun represented a very dangerous loose end indeed. Iron Fong groaned as his cybernetic systems began rebooting, various warning indicators flashing across his visual display as damaged components attempted to come back online. The Korthak warrior was still alive, but it would be several minutes before he regained full functionality. Here's what's going to happen. Marcus announced, his decision made. You're going to contact your client and tell them I'm dead. Complete mission success, target eliminated, no complications. You'll collect your payment and disappear into whatever hole you crawled out of. Zexthor's 4 eyes narrowed suspiciously. And in exchange? In exchange, you get to live. Your partner gets to live. And you both get to learn why someone was willing to pay 50 million credits to have me killed. The Vanguard assassin considered the offer carefully. Professional pride warred with simple survival instinct, while his analytical mind tried to determine what advantage the human might gain from allowing them to live. You're planning to trace the contract back to its source, he realized. Marcus's smile was visible through his faceplate, and it was not reassuring. Oh, I'm going to do much more than trace it. I'm going to find whoever hired you, and I'm going to explain to them personally why disturbing a retired farmer was a very poor decision. The combat armor's weapon systems powered down as Marcus stepped back, offering his captured opponents a chance to surrender rather than continuing a fight they couldn't win. But the look in his eyes suggested that this was only the beginning of what was going to be a very bad day for everyone involved in the assassination attempt. Welcome to the team, Marcus said, his tone suggesting that membership was not optional. Marcus led his captive assassins through what appeared to be a simple farmhouse root cellar, but which revealed itself as the entrance to an underground facility that definitely hadn't been included in any colonial building permits. The stairs descended much deeper than should have been possible given the local water table, and the walls showed the kind of advanced construction techniques that suggested significant financial investment. Impressive operation, Zexthor observed, his 4 arms secured behind his back with restraints that adapted to his physiology. Despite being captured, the Vanguard assassin maintained his professional interest in tactical installations. Iron Fong said nothing as they descended, his damaged cybernetic systems still attempting to fully reboot. Warning indicators flashed across his visual display, and several of his enhanced systems remained offline. The feedback explosion from his particle cannon had been more damaging than he'd initially realized. The stairway terminated in a circular chamber that served as a hub for multiple passages leading deeper into the underground complex. Marcus paused at a security terminal, placing his hand on what appeared to be a simple scanner. The device hummed for several seconds before accepting his identity and unsealing blast doors that had been disguised as sections of natural rock wall. 23 years of paranoia buys you a lot of security, Marcus explained as they entered the main facility. Amazing what you can accomplish when you assume everyone is trying to kill you. The complex beyond the blast doors was unlike anything either surviving assassin had expected to find beneath a colonial farm. Military-grade equipment filled rooms that extended in multiple directions, creating an underground installation that rivaled some planetary defense facilities. Computer servers hummed quietly alongside weapons storage areas, communication arrays, and what appeared to be a complete intelligence analysis center. Marcus gestured for his captives to take seats at a conference table that looked oddly mundane, surrounded by such advanced technology. Before we discuss the terms of your continued existence, I think you deserve to understand exactly who you tried to kill. A holographic display materialized above the table, showing what appeared to be standard military personnel records. The image showed a much younger Marcus Chun, wearing the dress uniform of the Terran Federation's Special Operations Command. His rank insignia indicated he had achieved the position of colonel before his apparent retirement. Colonel Marcus Chun, Special Operations, Zexthor read from the displayed information. Impressive rank for someone so young. I had a talent for violence, Marcus replied, his tone suggesting that talent hadn't been entirely welcome. The Federation found that talent useful during several conflicts that don't appear in most history books. Additional records began displaying on the holographic system, showing mission summaries, commendations, and classified operational details. Iron Fong's cybernetic eye automatically attempted to process the information, but most of it was encrypted beyond his ability to decode. Operation Dark Mirror, Marcus began, selecting one of the classified files. Infiltration and elimination of a separatist leadership council on Proxima 7. 12 targets, all eliminated within a 6-hour window. No collateral damage, no survivors, no evidence left behind. The holographic display showed tactical analysis of the mission, including floor plans, guard rotations, and the precise timing of each elimination. It was a masterpiece of planning and execution that demonstrated capabilities far beyond what most military forces could achieve. Operation Silent Thunder. Destruction of a pirate fleet operating from the asteroid belt. 37 ships, over 2,000 personnel, all eliminated by a single operative using improvised explosive devices and electromagnetic warfare. Marcus's voice carried no pride in the accomplishment, only a clinical detachment that suggested he had reviewed these files many times before. Zexthor studied the mission data with professional interest. These operations would require extensive support networks, intelligence, logistics, extraction protocols. No single operative could accomplish this alone. You're right, Marcus agreed. Which brings us to the interesting part of my service record. A new set of files appeared on the display, these marked with security classifications that neither assassin recognized. The encryption was unlike anything in standard military databases, suggesting sources that operated outside normal command structures. Special Access Program 77 Alpha. Designation: Project Prometheus. Primary Operative: Colonel Marcus Chun. Marcus paused, allowing his captives to absorb the implications. Have you ever wondered why humans integrated so quickly into galactic civilization? Why a species that had never traveled beyond its own solar system was able to compete with civilizations thousands of years more advanced? Iron Fong's cybernetic systems finally completed their reboot sequence, allowing him to speak clearly for the first time since the barn incident. Humans demonstrated remarkable adaptability to galactic technology and customs. Remarkable, yes, but not accidental. Marcus selected another file, displaying what appeared to be organizational charts showing connections between human colonies and various galactic institutions. Project Prometheus was designed to accelerate human integration through strategic intelligence gathering and targeted elimination of obstacles to expansion. The full scope of the project began revealing itself through the classified documents. Human operatives had been inserted throughout galactic civilization years before first contact was officially established. They had studied alien technologies, mapped power structures, identified key individuals who might oppose human expansion, and prepared countermeasures for every conceivable threat to human interests. You were conducting espionage operations before your species officially joined galactic society? Zexthor's mandibles clicked in disbelief. For 15 years before first contact, Marcus confirmed. We learned your languages, studied your cultures, infiltrated your organizations, and eliminated anyone who might prevent humanity from claiming its place in the galaxy. The holographic display shifted to show a map of known space, with markers indicating human operations across dozens of star systems. Each marker represented successful intelligence gathering, technological theft, or targeted elimination missions that had prepared the groundwork for humanity's eventual expansion beyond Earth. The Altarian War that Iron Fong mentioned earlier, Marcus continued, was not the result of spontaneous conflict. It was engineered by human operatives who identified the Altarian Empire as the greatest threat to human expansion. We provided intelligence to their enemies, sabotaged their supply lines, and eliminated key military leaders until their empire collapsed in a civil war. Iron Fong's organic eye widened as he processed the implications. The war that killed millions was a human intelligence operation. The war that prevented the extinction of humanity when the Altarians discovered our true capabilities, Marcus corrected. They had technologies that would have made human expansion impossible. We couldn't allow that. Additional files showed the scope of human manipulation throughout the galaxy. Trade agreements that favored human colonies had been negotiated by operatives who knew exactly what their alien counterparts wanted to hear. Territorial disputes had been resolved in humanity's favor through carefully timed intelligence leaks. Competing species had found themselves facing internal rebellions or economic collapses, just as humans moved into their former territories. How many? Zexthor asked quietly. How many operations? How many targets eliminated? How many civilizations manipulated? Marcus shrugged. The exact numbers are classified above my clearance level. My personal count stopped at 347 confirmed eliminations. The conference room fell silent as the two assassins absorbed the magnitude of what they were learning. The humans they had dismissed as weak newcomers to galactic civilization had actually been orchestrating events from behind the scenes for decades before anyone realized they existed. Project Prometheus was discontinued 8 years ago. Marcus continued, when the Federation decided that humanity was sufficiently established to operate through normal diplomatic and economic channels. Most operatives were either transferred to other programs or allowed to retire with new identities. But not all of them, Iron Fong observed. Some operatives knew too much to be allowed complete freedom. Others had made enemies during their years of operations. A few had developed psychological problems that made them potential security risks. Marcus selected a new file, showing a list of names with various status indicators. 17 operatives were classified as permanent security risks and marked for eventual elimination. The names on the list were crossed out one by one, each accompanied by a date and method of death. 17 names, 16 crossed out. Only one remained active on the list, Colonel Marcus Chun. They've been killing us off, Marcus said simply, removing loose ends that might expose the full scope of Project Prometheus. Making sure that humanity's secret history remains secret. Zexthor studied the list with growing understanding. Your own government hired us to kill you. Not directly. Too much risk of exposure through official channels. They contracted it out to civilian intermediaries who hired you through the standard assassination marketplace. Marcus closed the file and turned to face his captives directly. 50 million credits is a small price to pay for ensuring that someone like me never tells the galaxy what humanity really did to secure its place in galactic civilization. The implications were staggering. If Marcus's testimony became public, it would expose decades of human intelligence operations and potentially destabilize the entire political structure of human space. Every trade agreement, every territorial settlement, every diplomatic achievement of the past 20 years would be called into question. They're probably monitoring communication channels, waiting for confirmation of my death, Marcus continued. When you report mission success, they'll transfer the payment and consider the matter closed. Iron Fong's tactical analysis was running probability calculations on their current situation. And if we report mission failure, then they'll send better killers, and more of them. And they'll keep sending them until someone succeeds or until I decide to stop running and start hunting. Marcus's expression hardened. I've been hoping they would eventually decide the risk wasn't worth it. Apparently, I was being optimistic. The holographic display shifted again, showing current intelligence about other surviving Prometheus operatives. Most were listed as deceased, but a few showed uncertain status or possible survival indicators. There are others still alive, Zexthor observed. 3, possibly 4. All in hiding. All try to live quiet lives that don't attract attention. All being hunted by the same people who hired you. Marcus stood up from the conference table, beginning to pace as he spoke. The question is whether we can find them before the cleanup crews do. The Vanguard assassin's tactical mind was already analyzing the possibilities. You're proposing a counter-operation. Instead of simply defending against assassination attempts, you want to go on the offensive. I want to end this. I want to find whoever is coordinating the elimination of Prometheus operatives and explain to them why disturbing retired farmers is bad for their health. Marcus stopped pacing and looked directly at his captives. I'm offering you a choice. Help me track down the people who hired you, or spend the rest of your very short lives looking over your shoulders. Iron Fong's cybernetic analysis suggested several flaws in Marcus's proposal. Why would they want us dead? We're just contractors who completed a mission. Because you've seen this facility. Because you know who I really am. Because you're now loose ends that need to be tied off. Marcus activated another display, showing communication intercepts and financial tracking data. They've already flagged your payment accounts for monitoring. The moment you access those 50 million credits, you'll be marked for elimination. The evidence was convincing. Transaction logs showed unusual activity around the payment accounts, suggesting monitoring software that would track any access attempts. Additional data indicated that previous assassination teams hired for similar contract had all died in apparent accidents within weeks of completing their missions. Professional hazard, Zexthor muttered, his mandibles clicking with resignation. Not if we get to them first, Marcus replied. I have the skills, the equipment, and 18 months of suppressed anger about being forced out of retirement. You have contacts in the assassination marketplace and knowledge of how these contracts are arranged. Together, we can trace the money back to its source and settle this permanently. The two assassins exchanged glances, their professional experience allowing them to communicate without words. The choice Marcus was offering wasn't really a choice at all. They could help him willingly, or they could be eliminated as security risks along with everyone else who knew too much about Project Prometheus. What exactly are you proposing? Iron Fong asked finally. Marcus smiled, and for the first time since their capture, the expression looked genuinely pleased rather than threatening. I'm proposing that we remind the galaxy why humans became apex predators on their home world long before they learned to build starships. The holographic display shifted one final time, showing tactical plans and resource allocations for what could only be described as a military campaign. It was clear that Marcus had been planning this operation for months, waiting only for the right trigger to begin what would undoubtedly be a very violent resolution to his retirement problems. Welcome to Project Nemesis, Marcus announced. Time to show our former employers what happens when you try to eliminate the best operative they ever trained. 3 weeks later, Marcus Chun stood in the penthouse office of Counselor Elizabeth Harper, the woman who had ordered his death. The view from a 97th floor of the Federation Administrative Complex showed the sprawling cityscape of New Geneva, humanity's seat of galactic government. It would have been beautiful if Marcus hadn't been there to kill the person enjoying it. Counselor Harper sat behind her desk with the composed dignity of someone who had spent decades wielding power from behind the scenes. Even facing Marcus's military-grade combat armor and the obvious threat it represented, she maintained the calm demeanor that had made her one of the most feared intelligence operatives in human space. Colonel Chun, she said, her voice carrying neither surprise nor fear. I wonder when you would finally decide to stop running. Counselor Harper, or should I say, Director Harper of Special Projects Division. Marcus kept his weapon lowered, but ready, his armor's targeting systems maintaining constant locks on the woman behind the desk. Those days are behind me now. I'm simply a civilian administrator trying to maintain stability in an increasingly complex galaxy. Harper gestured to the chairs across from her desk. Please sit. We have much to discuss. Marcus remained standing, his enhanced senses scanning the office for hidden threats. We have nothing to discuss. You order my execution. I'm here to return the favor. Actually, we have quite a lot to discuss. For instance, how you managed to convince 2 professional assassins to betray their contract and join your personal war against the Federation intelligence apparatus. Harper's smile suggested she found the situation genuinely amusing. Zexthor and Iron Fong discovered that their employer had plans to eliminate them once the contract was complete. Professional courtesy motivated them to reconsider their priorities. Ah yes, the unfortunate necessity of cleaning up loose ends. A practice you should understand better than most, given your own operational history. Harper touched a control on her desk, and holographic displays materialized showing surveillance footage of recent events. The first display showed Zexthor infiltrating the offices of Meridian Financial, the intermediary company that had arranged the assassination contract. The Vanguard assassin moved through the building's security systems like a ghost, his 4 arms allowing him to hack computer systems while simultaneously neutralizing guards. The second display showed Iron Fong conducting what could only be described as an interrogation of several corporate executives. The Korthak warrior's cybernetic enhancements had been repaired and upgraded with equipment Marcus had provided, making him significantly more effective at extracting information from unwilling sources. Your new partners have been quite busy, Harper observed. Meridian Financial has ceased to exist as a functional organization. 3 other intermediary companies have suffered similar fates. You've been systematically dismantling the infrastructure we use for sensitive operations. I'm just getting started, Marcus replied. Those were the easy targets. The people who hired them to hire you to hire the assassins. Small fish in a very large pond. Harper's expression shifted slightly, showing the first sign of genuine concern. You're planning to expose Project Prometheus. I'm planning to end Project Prometheus. Permanently. Starting with everyone who thought ordering my death was a good idea. Marcus activated his own holographic display, showing intelligence gathered during 3 weeks of systematic investigation. The information his team had collected painted a comprehensive picture of the conspiracy to eliminate surviving Prometheus operatives. Financial records, communication intercepts, and personnel files revealed a network that extended throughout the highest levels of human government. Fascinating, Harper said, studying the data with professional interest. You've identified most of our operational structure, but you're missing the critical piece of information that would make this intelligence actually useful, which is the reason we're eliminating Prometheus operatives isn't to cover up past operations. It's to prevent future ones. Harper stood up from her desk, moving to the window that overlooked the city below. Tell me, Colonel, what do you think has changed in the galaxy during the past 2 years? Marcus considered the question while his armor's sensors continued monitoring the office for threats. The hegemony wars ended. The Altarian successor states signed peace treaties. Human expansion has slowed to sustainable levels. All accurate but incomplete. What you're missing is that other species have begun developing their own versions of Project Prometheus. Harper turned back to face Marcus, her expression now deadly serious. We're not the only ones who realize that intelligence operations and targeted elimination could reshape galactic civilization. New holographic displays materialized, showing intelligence reports from across known space. Korthak assassination teams operating in human territory. Vanguard infiltration specialists targeting human research facilities. Sci-Fi operatives conducting sabotage operations against human trade routes. The techniques we pioneered have been copied, improved, and turned against us. Every species that suffered from our operations has spent the past decade developing countermeasures and revenge protocols. Harper walked around her desk to stand directly in front of Marcus. Retired Prometheus operatives represent the greatest security risk humanity has ever faced. Because we know how it's done, Marcus realized. Because you know how it's done, where the weaknesses are and how to exploit them. Every one of you who gets captured by enemy intelligence services becomes a weapon pointed at the heart of human civilization. Harper returned to her chair, settling back into the composed posture she had maintained throughout their conversation. Marcus lowered his weapon slightly as he processed the implications. So the elimination protocol wasn't just about covering up past crimes. It was about preventing future disasters. 17 operatives with enough knowledge to destroy humanity's position in galactic civilization. 17 potential traitors who could be turned against their own species through blackmail, torture, or simple revenge motivation. Harper's voice carried the weight of someone making difficult decisions for the survival of her species. And yet you're still talking to me instead of triggering whatever security measures this office undoubtedly contains, Marcus observed. Because the situation has changed. Your little war against our infrastructure has forced our hand. We can no longer operate through intermediaries and cutouts. Every intelligence asset we've spent decades developing has been compromised by your systematic destruction of our operational security. Harper activated her own tactical displays, showing the scope of damage Marcus's team had inflicted. Financial networks destroyed, communication systems compromised, safe houses burned, operational personnel dead or missing. 3 weeks of professional violence had crippled human intelligence capabilities throughout the outer spiral. You've won, Colonel. The elimination protocol has been suspended. Surviving Prometheus operatives will be left alone to live whatever lives they choose. Harper's admission came with obvious reluctance. But your victory comes with a price, which is humanity's intelligence apparatus has been set back by decades. We're now vulnerable to the very operations we once conducted against others. Enemy agents are already moving into the operational spaces you've created through your destruction of our networks. Harper stood again, this time moving to a secure communication terminal. I can show you the intelligence reports if you don't believe me. 17 human colonies have experienced industrial accidents in the past 2 weeks. 3 research facilities have been infiltrated and their data stolen. Our early warning network for assassination attempts have been compromised, leaving high-value targets completely exposed. The evidence was convincing. Marcus's war against the intelligence apparatus had created exactly the kind of operational opportunities that Project Prometheus had once exploited against other species. The hunters had become the hunted, and humanity was discovering that they didn't enjoy the experience. What are you proposing? Marcus asked. A new arrangement. The remaining Prometheus operatives are officially dead, eliminated by the cleanup protocol. Their real identities are classified beyond any clearance level. They're free to live whatever lives they choose, wherever they choose to live them. Harper paused, studying Marcus's reaction. In exchange, they provide consulting services for the new defensive operations we're going to need. You want us to help you defend against the same tactics we pioneered. I want you to help defend your own species against enemies who learned from your example and improved upon your methods. Harper's tone carried genuine urgency. The galaxy has become a much more dangerous place since humans taught everyone else how to conduct modern intelligence warfare. Marcus considered the offer while his tactical analysis systems processed the available options. He could kill Harper, but that would only create more chaos in an already destabilized situation. He could walk away, but that would leave humanity vulnerable to threats they had helped create. Or he could accept her proposal and help clean up the mess Project Prometheus had made of galactic civilization. Terms, he asked finally. Full pardons for all surviving operatives. New identities provided, but not required. Consulting fees of 10 million credits per year, plus operational support for any defensive measures you recommend. Harper smiled. And most importantly, no more assassination attempts. The cleanup protocol is officially terminated. Marcus powered down his weapons systems and removed his armor's helmet, revealing his face for the first time since entering the office. I'll need to discuss this with my partners. Of course, though I should mention that they've already accepted similar offers. Zexthor has been hired as a security consultant for our counter-assassination programs. Iron Fong is developing new defensive technologies based on his recent experiences. You contacted them before meeting with me. I contacted them instead of meeting with you. This entire conversation could have been handled through secure communication channels. Harper's smile widened. But I wanted to see for myself what kind of man could organize a 3-week campaign that nearly brought down human intelligence operations single-handedly. Marcus realized that he had been maneuvered into exactly the position Harper wanted him in. The woman who had ordered his death had used his own success against her organization to demonstrate why that organization needed his services. Professional respect, he said, recognizing the manipulation for what it was. Professional necessity. The galaxy has become too dangerous for humanity to operate without the kind of capabilities you represent. Harper extended her hand across the desk. Welcome back to the intelligence community, Colonel Chun. Retirement is officially over. Marcus shook her hand, sealing an agreement that he knew was probably the best outcome he could have hoped for. His war against the cleanup protocol had succeeded, but in ways he hadn't anticipated. Instead of destroying the intelligence apparatus that had tried to kill him, he had forced it to evolve into something that might actually protect his species from the threats they had helped create. One question, Marcus said as he prepared to leave. How many other species are currently conducting operations similar to Project Prometheus? Harper's expression became thoughtful. All of them. Every major civilization in the galaxy now has intelligence programs based on techniques humans pioneered. The question isn't whether other species are conducting these operations, but whether we're prepared to defend against them. Marcus nodded slowly, understanding the true scope of the problem. Humanity had taught the galaxy how to conduct modern intelligence warfare, and now they were discovering that they had been excellent teachers. The techniques that had given humans their place in galactic civilization were now being used against them by enemies who had learned from human example. It's going to be an interesting few years, he observed. Colonel, if we're very good at our jobs and very lucky with our timing, we might just survive those interesting few years. Harper returned to her desk, already reaching for secure communication devices that would begin implementing their new arrangement. As Marcus left the Federation Administrative Complex, he reflected on the irony of his situation. He had tried to retire from the intelligence community only to discover that the community wasn't finished with him. His attempt to escape his past had led directly back to the work he had tried to abandon. But perhaps that was appropriate. He had helped create the current state of galactic civilization through his work with Project Prometheus. Now he would help protect that civilization from the consequences of what they had built together. The farmer known as Marcus Chun was officially dead, eliminated by unknown assassins on a remote agricultural colony. But the operative known as Colonel Marcus Chun was very much alive, and he had work to do. In the end, the galaxy had gotten exactly what it deserved. A universe where every species understood how to conduct the kind of operations that humans had pioneered. Whether they would all survive the education remained to be seen. But Marcus intended to make sure that humanity, at least, would be ready for whatever lessons the galaxy still had to teach them. After all, they had been excellent students once. Now it was time to see if they could be equally excellent teachers. The war for galactic civilization had ended. The war to survive, it was just beginning. And Marcus Chun, former farmer, current consultant, and eternal soldier, was exactly where he belonged, right in the middle of the most dangerous game ever played among the stars.